Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the CrossPlay podcast. I'm Pastor Mark, and I'm joining you on this podcast because there's a lot of things going on in my life and in the world in general. And sometimes the easiest way for me to get a video out is just to do a long form podcast thing rather than making kind of short, tight video. That's time consuming, requires a lot of editing, and this is easier for me. I do this at my church in my role where I just podcast, so it's a lot easier to just kind of riff and do things like this. So hopefully that works. We'll see. But I wanted to do this just to kind of dive into a lot of the things that happen in the nerd world, in the gaming world, especially in the last week. There's been a ton of announcements and showcases and live streams and all this stuff. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight a few things, things that I think are important, things that I think are fun or exciting. And we'll talk about that. I want to get your thoughts, and we'll see how this goes. So this is kind of my recap of the not E3 week that we had. That's what people have been calling it, and I think that's fun. E3 obviously being the big showcase that used to happen and then just kind of lost its the fireworks, the spark of what made it fun. Sony dropped out of that a few years ago, and then COVID happened, and it hasn't returned yet. They've said they're going to return next year, and I would imagine that they want to return because that's how that organization makes about half of its income, is off of E3 specifically. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if a lot of the companies are going to want to go back to paying tons of money to have a presence on the show floor when they could just put together a 20 to 30 minute live stream, or 90 minutes if you're Xbox, and do it that way. So we'll see. I guess we'll see next year. But to recap some of the big things that have happened over the last week, there was the Summer Games Fest, which was super exciting. That's Jeff Keighley's big event. He has the Video Game Awards that happened in December, and then he also started doing Summer Games Fest a few years ago. So that kicked off, and there was a bunch of exciting announcements in there for people, a lot of gameplay reveals and things like that. But the biggest thing that I wanted to discuss was the thing that leaked. Kind of the one big thing that leaked through was the Last of Us remake. This has been the long-rumored, long-discussed Last of Us remake, and a lot of the discussion really surrounds the question of, do we need this? Because The Last of Us only came out not that long ago. It came out in 2013, summer of 2013, right before the PS4 launched in November of that year. And so you have this game that's not even 10 years old and has already been remastered for the PlayStation 4. Remember that Naughty Dog remastered that the following year, and that came out on PlayStation 4, and that was kind of their first foray into learning PlayStation 4 hardware. And now they're claiming that, hey, this is our first foray into PlayStation 5 hardware. We're learning that. And so it's kind of this weird tradition, I guess, that Naughty Dog needs to kind of remaster or remake a game to learn the hardware, and then they'll make a game. So as to whether or not it's needed, I mean, the critique kind of comes through, hey, this game's only not even 10 years old, still looks pretty good, even on the PS3. I mean, this is probably, without a doubt, one of, if not the best looking PS3 game there is on that hardware. Remember, this came out right at the tail end of PS3, looks amazing, and then they remastered it, and obviously on PS4 it looks really good, and now it's remade from the ground up for PS5, and it looks really good. But I guess the question is, it didn't not look good, so do we need it now to look better? Sure, that's fine, I guess. I'm curious. They said they've made some gameplay changes with it, so I'm curious what that means. I'm assuming it's going to play more like Last of Us Part 2, and there were some nice gameplay changes in there, some quality of life things. I'm curious what that means in terms of the gameplay, though. It doesn't seem like they're changing anything with the story. The cutscenes that we've seen are literally like almost shot-for-shot remakes of those same cutscenes. There's obviously different character models, different animations, but they play out, at least from what we've seen, they play out exactly like they did then. So all that to say, am I excited about it? Yeah, but I just like Last of Us. So really anything that they do with The Last of Us, I love. I mean, the first game I adored. One of the only games to legit make me cry, like that first, I don't want to spoil it, but if you've played that first 10 to 15 minutes, oh my gosh, it's still, just thinking about it breaks my heart. So very impactful story, very powerful story, really good gameplay, I think. Not like the best gameplay in the world, but I think gameplay that fit well with that world and with that story. So I loved that. I enjoyed playing through the DLC. Factions, the multiplayer, I thought was amazing. And I don't like multiplayer. I don't play multiplayer games, but I got hooked on that. So I played it through on the remaster as well, beat it again, played through Factions again, loved that. So really, I mean, I'm part of the problem. I recognize that. I realize that because as soon as they announce anything with The Last of Us, I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. I want that. Same thing with The Last of Us TV show. They announced during Summer Games Fest that Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, who played Joel and Ellie respectively, have roles in that show, which I think is really interesting. And they announced that they're not like just small cameos, kind of like what Nolan North did in Uncharted, but they're actual like named speaking roles. They have a role to play in the show, and my initial thought was, man, it'd be really interesting if Troy Baker played the character that Nolan North played in The Last of Us original. And again, I don't want to spoil anything with that if no one's played it, because it's not that old, as we've been discussing. So yeah, there's lots of Last of Us news going on. That's really cool. They also announced, they haven't announced a title, but they said that the new Last of Us multiplayer that they're working will be its own standalone thing. That's going to come out next year, so they'll have news for that next year. So my guess is that'll probably be like a summer or fall game based on how they're talking about that. So that's all interesting. I'm curious what you guys think of that. Do you think we need the remake? Do you think we need something like that? I mean, I got to confess, when the trailer leaked, I watched it and I was super excited leading up to it. And then I watched it and I was kind of like, oh, I mean, it looks great. Don't get me wrong. It looks amazing. But I don't know what I was expecting. I kind of was like, oh, this is kind of what I imagined it already looked like. And then they started showing before and afters, and I was like, I mean, it absolutely, objectively looks better, but I just don't think the old one looks that bad. So I hope we are not in this place where we're just going to start remaking games that are 9 years old, because I don't think games need that. But whatever. I like The Last of Us, so, and again, I know I'm part of the problem. After Summer Games Fest, we had the Xbox Showcase. There's a few things I wanted to talk about from there. Starfield was shown, so that was kind of the big thing that people were waiting for, is more news about Starfield. That was notably delayed this year, so that'll come out next year. So I know a lot of people were looking for that to come out in the fall, and that obviously won't be happening, but we got some more information about it, so that's cool. There's a lot of No Man's Sky comparisons, which I think, I don't know if they were not wanting to have those comparisons, because they're kind of hard not to have, especially when you're showing gameplay that almost directly mirrors what already happens in No Man's Sky. But for me, that's not my biggest concern with Starfield. My biggest concern really is the size of it. And it's interesting how developers are kind of bragging and having this be like a marketing piece that they put out of how big their game is. And when I hear that, immediately I'm like, I don't want to play that. Like when... what game is it? Dying Light 2. When they were promoting Dying Light 2, they were like, oh, if you want to see everything in this game, it'll be 500 hours of content. And it's like, that sounds horrible. I don't want to do that. I don't have that much time in my life to do that. I'm a dad. I work full time. I'm married. There's things in my life that require my time and should have my time. And so a game that takes 500 hours, that's not a selling point to me. That's why like a recent game like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, that fits right in my wheelhouse. That's a short game that's a bite-sized game. I can dive in there, have a lot of fun. I'm on board with that. Love that. 500 hours, don't like that. So one of the things that they promoted with Starfield was, oh, we have 1,000 planets that you can visit, that you can go and explore and do all this stuff. And to me, it's like, that sounds like 970 planets too many. I don't want to do that. That sounds too big. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know why companies see that as this massive selling point. I know it's like, you would think that would kind of be like the default thing of like, oh, to add value to this game, we need to make it bigger. So for Grand Theft Auto 6, if it's going to be a better game, it has to be bigger than the map of Grand Theft Auto 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 combined. And it's like, no, it's not. I wish we could just get away from this thinking in the games industry that bigger is better, because that's just, I don't know where that comes from other than marketing to say like, hey, it's 500 hours of content, that means it's better. Like, no, I don't think that. So I'm curious what you guys think. I think there is some really cool stuff in Starfield, but to me it all gets overshadowed by, I'm probably not going to play it because there's 1,000 planets that I'll never see, because I'll probably just visit like 4. So I don't know. But maybe I'm judging it too early. Who knows? One of the other big things that came out of the Xbox Showcase was the Hideo Kojima partnership, which was the announcement of a coming announcement, which we'll talk about that in a second. It's really cool that Xbox is partnering with Kojima. I think it's showing the strength of Kojima Production Studio, that it's not just this PlayStation powerhouse, but they're expanding. They're big enough that they can continue to partner with PlayStation, because they emphasize that afterwards, that, hey, we still have a strong relationship with PlayStation. That's really great. And they're expanding enough that, hey, we can do things with Xbox. I'm curious if there are other hidden projects that we don't know about, other multi-platform things. So it seems like, based on the rumors, it seems like this is going to be a horror game, kind of in the same vein of his Silent Hills, the canceled Silent Hills game that he never got to finish. So I'm curious about that. There's been some leaks about characters, or at least actors that played characters in Death Stranding that now seem to be doing gameplay footage for whatever this other game is. So I'm curious what that looks like. But my pet peeve with this is like it's an announcement of an announcement. Like we're not ready to actually say anything, but hey, we'll be excited because eventually we'll announce something. So they announced that they're partnering with Kojima. That's really cool. And then the rest of the announcement was like, stay tuned for when we announce what we're actually doing. It's like, okay, why don't you just wait to do that when you're actually ready to announce the thing that you're doing? But and it's the same thing that happened with like the Assassin's Creed 25th anniversary celebration, or not the 25th, whatever Assassin's Creed celebration that they were doing this week, where they said, hey, we're really excited about Assassin's Creed and we're going to show you more in the fall about where we're going. It's like, okay, stop doing announcements of announcements. Just wait to do the actual announcement or announce it now. But my preference would be to just wait so you can announce it when it's ready. We don't have to do announcements of announcements of announcements. Whatever. I'm over it. But really, after the Xbox showcase, I was honestly just kind of left wanting, because really, over the last few years, they've talked so much about the games that they're making and all of these studios that they've bought. And they have games like Fable and Hellblade and Avowed coming from these great studios that have made these great games before. And these games are announced. We know they're in production. We've seen trailers or gameplay before. And then here you have this big build-up for a showcase, and we get Starfield gameplay, which I know people wanted. We get a really cool announcement with Kojima, and the rest is just kind of like there. And so I'm not trying to overset my expectations, because I've learned with Sony and with State of Plays, like, set your expectations lower and you'll be happier. But it's hard when Xbox has already set the expectation of like, hey, this is a game we're working on, and Perfect Dark and Avowed and Fable and all this stuff. And it's like, well, where are they? Because you announced them so long ago. Like, some of these games were announced multiple years ago, and then you have this big showcase, and it's like, okay, none of those are going to be seen in the next year. I don't know. To me, that left me a little disappointed afterwards, because while there's some exciting stuff, there's all the stuff that we actually know about that they're not talking about, and that seems odd to me. But whatever, that's fine. Some other stuff that happened in the last week, Resident Evil. There was the Capcom showcase. I wanted to highlight some of the stuff for Resident Evil. They have PlayStation 5 upgrades for the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, so that is tempting me to go dive into those. I actually haven't played through them. I've watched people play through them because A, I get scared easily, and B, survival horror stresses me out. And so I like watching other people play. That's usually better for me. But I did play through 8. I liked 8, and I'll get to 8 in a second. But these upgrades are tempting me to come back through and play it. I'll probably wait until they go on sale, because those games go on sale fairly frequently. So I'll probably dive back into those once they're on sale, because the upgrades look great. I know people adored Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3, less so, but still a pretty good quality remake, making their way to 4, which again we'll get to in a second. But the other thing they announced was for Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Village, there's a third-person camera upgrade, free upgrade for people. So obviously the game is played in first person, just like Resident Evil 7 played through in first person. But now there's this update where you can play through the whole game in third person, which I think is really cool. It's kind of fun. It's gonna have a good throwback to Resident Evil 4, which this game kind of feels like a spiritual successor to, where it feels like there's a lot of influences from 4. It's a lot more action oriented than strict survival horror oriented. So that's why I enjoyed playing through it, because I can actually play it and not get stressed out. So I enjoyed that part of it. So yeah, check that out. I might pop into that. Resident Evil 8 was fun, but it's not like so much fun that I'm dying to get back into it, especially to play third person. But it could hook me if we have slower months over the next few months. And then we got some slight teasers and slight bits of gameplay for Resident Evil 4. We got the announcement of it at the PlayStation State of Play, and then they showed a little bit more of it. They talked a little bit more of it about it at this Capcom showcase. So that was fun. I'm curious when they will show more what the actual gameplay looks and feels like. I'm curious what changes have been made. I'm always curious about that now that we had Final Fantasy VII Remake that was so radically different from Final Fantasy VII. I'm curious, like, if there are story aspects or if there are gameplay things that they're going to change, either for quality of life or because they just want to kind of be creative with it. And sometimes that really works, like with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and sometimes that doesn't really work with games that we don't really remember. remember because they didn't really work. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with Resident Evil 4. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about from the recap of not E3 was the Final Fantasy VII Celebration. So this I think was really cool. This, again, I think works really well because it was short. You don't have to have a 90-minute live stream. You can just do a short 20 to 30-minute thing. I hope people learn that from people that do it well, like Nintendo Directs. They're short and sweet. This was short and sweet. The last State of Play, I think, was short, sweet, tight, just showing gameplay. That's good. You don't have to have these multiple-hour things where you're just padding things out. I wish that this was my one wish that they would do with the Summer Games Fest is I wish you would have like a 30-minute showcase where you drop all of your announcements and you get all this stuff out there. And then after that, do in-depth interviews and developer walkthroughs and interviews with cast members and directors and things like that. Because, gosh, when you're just padding things out and you have a 2-minute trailer and then a 5-minute interview and then a 30-second trailer and a 50-second trailer and a 5-minute interview, it's just like, gosh, you're drawing things out. It doesn't need to be this long. It doesn't need to be this boring. But that's why I don't do it. They get paid to do it. That's fine, whatever. But the Final Fantasy VII Celebration, I think, was really cool, really exciting. We got some awesome announcements from that. Some cool games that are coming. Specifically, the remaster of Crisis Core, which I'm super excited about because the only gameplay experience I have of that is playing the demo in a Best Buy on a PSP. So I've never played through the whole game. Again, I've watched some gameplay. I know the story because I love Final Fantasy VII. But I'm excited to get this remaster, to dive back into that story. I think it's going to be super, super cool to go through that. And I'm excited that it's coming to all these different platforms so other people can experience Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core with a remake, remaster type thing. I mean, the graphics upgrade on it is going to be insane because it's going from PSP to PS5, Xbox Series X level graphics. That'll be really cool. We also got the announcement of the plan for the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. We now know it's going to be a trilogy. It'll be capped at those 3 chapters. So we have the first one, Remake. We have the second one coming out next winter, which I'm curious with that, if that's their fiscal year winter, or if what we think is winter, is that like November or December, or is that December, January, February? I don't know where that's going to fall. But anyway, that's going to be next winter that got announced. And that, again, PS5 exclusive, so that will not be coming to other consoles. So I'm sure Sony is very pleased with how well Final Fantasy games are being received, because next year we're going to have Final Fantasy 16 exclusive to PlayStation. That's not coming anywhere else. And we're going to have Final Fantasy 7 Remake 2 Rebirth, whatever they're calling it. That's exclusive to PlayStation 5, not going anywhere else. And then we're also going to have Crisis Core Reunion that's coming out this winter. That'll be multi-platform, so that'll be cool. But over the next year, Final Fantasy fans are going to really, really enjoy, I think, what's coming out. Or it's at least very exciting. I don't know if they'll enjoy it, but it'll at least be exciting what's on the horizon. So that's really cool. And then I also wanted to give my impressions of the new PlayStation Plus. If you remember that the new PlayStation Plus was unveiled a few months ago, and it just released in North America on June 13th. So that's been out for about a week now. So I've been playing some of the games through that. My general impression is it feels a lot like Game Pass in that there's so many games and it's just overwhelming to try to select some of these games. And what ends up happening, and maybe I'm wrong in how I feel about this, but I don't know. To me, getting the game for free makes me lose value with it. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that. So basically, I noticed this when I started playing games on Game Pass. When I first got Game Pass, I had not been in the Xbox ecosystem for a long time. So I basically missed all of Xbox One and everything within that, and a lot of Xbox 360. I mean, I had college roommates that had 360, and so I played a lot of the games, but I missed a lot of the exclusives within that. So I got Game Pass in the last year and started going back through and playing games like Quantum Break and the Gears of War collection and the Halo Master Chief collection, and trying to play all these games. And what I found is I would play it for about half an hour to an hour and then feel bored and move on to something else because I knew it was free. I didn't pay for it. I have no compelling motivation to move me through the game, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's some psychological thing that says hey, I didn't pay for this, so I don't really need to do anything with it. I know that doesn't make sense. And I felt similar with the PlayStation Plus upgrade. So because I had PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, was upgraded into the premium tier, which is the highest level tier. So you get the PS4 and PS5 catalog, you get the PlayStation 3, PS2, PlayStation 1, and I think PSP catalog as well. So you get all of that within there. and I started down looking at games, and I started feeling like, okay, I think I could play that game, but I don't really have like any motivation to beat it because I don't know, like there's just this full library of games. I'm not really paying for it, so I downloaded Gravity Rush and played it, or Gravity Rush 2 rather. Downloaded that, played it for about 5 minutes, and was like, I'm not interested in this, and stopped. Downloaded Demon Souls because I haven't played the remake of that yet. That's really cool. Played that for a few hours. Loved that. Remembered that it's way too hard for me. Stopped playing it. Again, not really motivated. Downloaded The Messenger, which is a really, really good pixel art side scroller, kind of in the style of Ninja Gaiden. That's a ton of fun. Again, too hard for me. Can't beat it. But got pretty far through that. And yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel this lack of motivation because I have this full library. And in my mind, it's like, well, I guess I'll just wait for the new thing. Like, I don't know. There's really no compelling title that I haven't already played because, like I said, I've been playing PlayStation for a while now. So a lot of the big games like Spider-Man PS4 and Spider-Man Miles Morales, played through those. A lot of the other PS4 and PS5 catalog, I've played through and beaten. And those are great games. So if you haven't played through those games, I think it would be a ton of fun. But if you're a Sony fan, if you've been playing on PlayStation for a while, if you've been really invested in the PlayStation ecosystem, especially over the last 5 years, I think you'll find that a lot of the stuff that's included with the subscription, it's probably stuff you've already played and you've already purchased. And because I purchased all my stuff digitally, I have all of this stuff anyway, so it's already there in my library. It's not like I bought the game physically and traded it into a GameStop or something. Like, I already have it. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of value there. I'm glad that they did it. I think it's a good offering. Will I stay at the premium tier after my payment for that tier expires? I don't know. I think I'm curious where they're going to land in the next 6 to 12 months. Like, what does the rotation of games in the catalog look like? And I'm really curious what they're going to add to the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 catalog, because what's there is good, but severely lacking from what I can see. So especially for PlayStation 1, like no Metal Gear Solid, to me, that's like, what? Like, how do you not have Metal Gear Solid? Final Fantasy games, the Chrono games, like, there's a lot of stuff missing there. And I know all that's tied up in like licensing and things like that. But the service lives or dies based on what's in the service. So if you don't have great games that are compelling, like, I don't know, to me, it would, like, I would immediately pay for that higher tier if they had Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1 with trophies. Like, I have the opportunity to go back and platinum Metal Gear Solid 1. Absolutely, I would do that in a heartbeat. But what's there right now is like Ape Escape and Mr. Driller and Resident Evil Director's Cut, so that's good. And it's like, there's good games here, but it's severely lacking. And then on PlayStation 2, you have the Jak and Daxter games. Those are super fun. I enjoyed those. You have like Mark of Kree, Rise of whatever. There's the Dark Cloud games. So there's games in there, but like Metal Gear Solid, notably missing. Final Fantasy games, notably missing. I don't know. There's just, and I know a lot of that is probably like, I'm sure they just want to do remasters and remakes and all this stuff, so that they're waiting to hold it out until you'll buy the new ones. Again, the service lives or dies based on the games that's there. So if there's not great games there, then the service dies. If there are great games, then the service lives. So I think Game Pass has kind of figured that out, that Game Pass has this kind of ebb and flow of, man, they got really good games, like they had the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, really good game. That's going to increase subscribers, and then there will probably be a lull depending on how things go over the next few months, and then they'll have a height where they get a new game, and it's so I don't know. I'm curious how things will go with that. So my impression right now of PlayStation Plus, what the new PlayStation Plus is, what the new PlayStation Plus is, I think it's good. I don't know how good it is for someone that's been in PlayStation in the ecosystem for a while. I think it loses value because a lot of the stuff, if you're in the ecosystem, you've played it before. So I don't know. We'll see. Lastly, I wanted to finish off with what I'm playing. So again, because I have the PlayStation Plus Premium tier, mentioned that I played through The Messenger. I think that's a great game. Super, super good music. Love the retro feel to it. The gameplay is really tight. Really, really enjoyed that. And then it just got to a point about halfway through the game where I was like, I'm bad at these games, and I'm going to bash my head against a wall and really start to hate the game because of how difficult it is. and how bad I am at it. And so I just kind of set it down. I might go back to it because it is a lot of fun, but it's a game that's worth checking out, especially if you have PlayStation Plus Premium, or maybe it's in the extra tier. I don't know, but it's definitely worth having. It's a great game, super fun. So check that out. Finished playing through The Quarry and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. So I have reviews that are up for that. You can go check those out. I've been playing Mario Strikers Battle League on the Switch, and that game, I think, is a nugget of something that could be great, and it's a continued confirmation of how Nintendo is making sports games, where it's just like, here, you get the very, very basic base level game that we could ever make, and we'll add on to it later if people like it. Like they did the same thing with Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, where it's like, here, you get these characters and these stages and this type of gameplay, and if you like it, we'll add more. And it's like, can you just make like a great game, like a fully fleshed out experience? So Mario Strikers is a fun game. Like, it's fun to go back and think through playing that game with friends in high school, playing it on the GameCube. That was tons of fun. Like, it immediately brought me back to how fun that game was. And this game is fun. It's fun to play kind of soccer with no rules, where you can tackle and do these crazy hyper strike kicks and all that stuff. And so it's fun and short-lived, because you'll play through the cup battles. Oops, sorry, I hit my mic. Because you'll play through the tournaments. Those are kind of fun. And then after you play through the tournaments once, it unlocks a really difficult mode. And it's like ridiculously difficult. Like, I played through with friends on the first tournament. That worked well. That was fine. It got a little bit challenging towards the end. Had a little bit of struggles. But in general, we won almost every time that we went through. And then this new hard mode is ridiculously difficult. So there's a massive difficulty spike where you really have to like master the game. And it kind of sucked all the fun out of it for me, because like that's it. That's all you can do in the game, is you can either do kind of quick exhibition matches or these tournaments, and then you can obviously play online. But that's it. Like, there's nothing else. There's no characters to unlock that I could find by beating through the story, or by beating through the first tournament mode. You unlock an extra piece of gear. That's kind of like the new thing with Mario Strikers Battle League, is that you can equip different like helmets and cleats and gloves and shoulder pads, and that kind of changes the stats of your character. So there's the hook to that. I don't know. I think it was fun and very short-lived. And I wish Nintendo would really invest into these sports titles, because they could be like what they were before, where you would really have this long tail of people playing this game. And what they do with Mario Kart, where you have like unlockable tracks and unlockable characters and unlockable customizable things for your cart and wheels and kites and things like that. And this is just kind of like, here's the game, hope you like it. So I don't know, kind of left disappointed, wish it was better, but had fun while I played it. There's that. And then as for what I'm playing next, I'm excited to dive back into Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I kind of have a really big Star Wars itch, because I've been going through Kenobi and it's disappointing. And so I want to play a good Star Wars game and have a good Star Wars experience, because I feel like writing Star Wars isn't that difficult. And for some reason, Kenobi is demonstrating that apparently writing Star Wars is very difficult. And so I'm just going to play through Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I haven't played it through since they had the PS5 upgrade, so it'll be nice to play through that with smooth 60 frames per second. Playing that on the PS5, that'll be exciting. So yeah, that's what I'm playing. And then I want to finish this just by offering you a devotional, if I can. As you know, I'm a pastor and a Christian, and think that God has a lot to offer us and offers a lot in his word. And if I can just leave you a really short bit of encouragement, I hope this blesses you. I have a devotional that goes through the book of Psalms and just offers a psalm per day. And so I just want to offer you a little bit of what God says in his word. So I'm just going to read Psalm 1, and then I'll go through a little bit of the devotional with you. So Psalm 1, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. This man is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the ways of the righteous, but the ways of the wicked will perish. And I think the cool thing that we see here, that might be foreign to you, that might be unfamiliar, but the cool thing that I think that we can take away from this passage is there's basically two ways of living life. There's a way that leads towards death and a way that leads towards life, a way that leads towards God. And God says that blessed is the man that lives his life in a way that leads towards God. And so we can live our life in a way where we're kind of chasing everything the world has to offer us, chasing the to-do list, chasing crossing things off our list, chasing gaming and hobbies and passion and work and everything else that can take us away from God. Or we can live our life soaking in all of who God is, soaking in God's word, and that is the way that prospers. Now, that doesn't mean that if we are Christian and we live our life in this way, that we will prosper and will have full bank accounts and no debt and great jobs and promotions and everything will be hunky-dory and perfect. That's not what it means. It means that in the span of eternity, in the perspective of eternity, the righteous person, the person that follows God, that pursues God and lives their lives according to God's law, according to what God has said, that person in the perspective of eternity will prosper because they will be with God. And that, I think, is an encouragement because there's so much stuff in our world, in our lives, that tries to take our attention and pull us away. And a lot of times it can be games. And I'm saying this as someone that enjoys playing games. I love playing games. Gaming is a huge hobby and passion of mine. And that is something that can take me away from my relationship with God. So at the end of the day, I'm a Christian first. I'm a follower of Jesus first. And I'm a husband and father and gamer and friend. And all of these other things come second to my relationship with God. And so hopefully that's an encouragement to you that we can take refuge in who God is, that we can pursue life with God. And he promises that we will be blessed, that we will prosper in eternity because of who he is. So I hope that blesses you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching this video. If there's other stuff that you want me to talk about, other stuff that you think we should address, let me know. I'm curious because I think I'm going to keep doing these long form videos again because it requires very little editing and I can get a lot in a shorter amount of time on my end, and that hopefully gets more content out to you and we can continue the conversation and build the community from there. And I wanted to remind you that as with every video, I'm praying for you. So if you have specific prayer requests, I want to pray for you. So go ahead and leave a comment, message me on Twitter. I will respond and let you know that I'm praying for you specifically. I'm praying for you as I make this video. So if you're just watching the video, know that you are being prayed for. I'm praying over you. And like I said, if you want to leave a comment, I will pray for you specifically as well. So thanks for tuning in. Remember that God loves you. I'm praying for you, and I'll see you in the next video.